All right. I'm gonna wait one more minute and then let people in.
Okay. Sounds good. Here we go one more time.
I know. You did so good earlier. It was so great.
Thanks.
Oh, this song. You know, I don't know how people feel about songs with cuss words in it, but it was on my happy playlist.
Oh, goodness. Okay. It's so overcast and like heavy here today.
Oh, that's wild. It is hot here. It's a normal summer hot, but hot day today. All right, I'm gonna go ahead
cold too. Okay.
And let people in. Hey everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Just gonna wait another minute or so, so we can make sure everyone who wants to be here on time is and can join the session. So for everyone just hopping in, we'll do a Q&A portion at the end. We have dedicated time for it, but as you have questions, if you don't want to forget your questions, feel free to send them in the chat at any time, so that way we can have them, and then we'll go back to them as needed. We'll just wait another minute here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Adrian, you have a shout out in the chat. Or a hello.
I need to unmute myself. Hi, Deborah and Audrey. And hi, Bobby.
Got a couple more people joining. It's fun to see our own team members on here too. Hi, you guys.
Yeah. Everyone loves accounting, right?
Accounting, reporting, all the details.
All the fun stuff.
Yeah. You either you love it or you don't.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much. It's like I feel like it's like math in school when you're growing up. Like you either you love it or you don't.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will go ahead and get started. Let me pause my music on my end of things. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to our final day and final session of S'more Success. Today we're going to be talking about accounting and reporting. And so there's a lot that goes into that. The good news is a lot of what you'll be working on will transfer over from Astra into Firefly. And so if you have questions on what's going to transfer over or what that whole process looks like, if you haven't started the migration, then your migration manager will be able to help you answer more questions just specifically about your park and what that looks like moving over. For those of you just jumping in, welcome. We are going to do a specific Q&A portion after Adrian does her training. And so if you have questions throughout, feel free to throw them in the chat so you don't forget your questions, and then we'll answer them at the end. And then if there's something like you want to see something again, or if we need to click and go back, we can answer that during of course. So just feel free to throw a note in and ask your question, and then if it's something that we can answer during, we will, and if not, we'll wait until the Q&A portion. So for everyone, sorry, I'm repeating myself a little bit. We have some stragglers. So for everyone hopping in, if you have questions throughout, feel free to throw them in the chat. We're talking all things accounting and reporting today, and I'm looking at our attendees list. I think everyone's been here for a session or two. So exact same structure as we've been doing all week. I'm going to introduce Adrian in a second, and then we'll go through the training, have some questions, and then some announcements and kind of what's next and what's to come with Firefly and what that looks like for you. So why are we doing this? What are we doing? We know the move from Astra to Firefly is a really big deal. We know that how you operate your park and take reservations is your bread and butter, and we don't take that lightly. We love that you guys have even given us the chance to have these conversations and even look at Firefly. So thank you. And we just want you guys to know that even after S'more Success is done, we're here to help you every step of the way. So if there's a topic that we went over this week that you want more help with, or that you'd like to see again, or if there's questions that maybe your park uses a specific feature a specific way and we didn't talk about that at all this week, reach out to us. We'll get you connected with the right person to answer your questions to help figure out what's best for you and your park. So Adrian is our in-house accounting and reporting expert. I've been here for almost 2.5 months now, and literally every time someone has a question about accounting and reporting, everyone's like, oh, go to Adrian. She's the best. She's the best at all of them. So I'm super excited for training today. Our earlier session, I got to learn a lot, which was very fun. She loves animals, has a puppy, a rabbit, and a bird, which is super cool. She lived in Japan for 6 years and always finds new hobbies like paper tolling and playing the dang it, I ask every time and then I forget, the lyre, which is a musical instrument, kind of like the harp. So without further ado, Adrian, I'll stop sharing my screen and you can take over. Thanks so much for being here and doing this training for us.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So we'll get this going here. Oh, there it goes. Okay. And just to make sure you can see my screen now, right? Okay, perfect. Yep. And please don't judge my data. This is a demo park, and I have a lot of overdue charges and bad guests. So hopefully yours won't look as bad as mine does, but it'll all work the same either way. So I'm going to start with just some basic reports that you don't have to have the accounting module set up to use. Just some that you can use kind of on a day-to-day basis or throughout your day to check up on things. The one report that I always go to is this one right here. This is your payments report, and this will be pretty much the same as your cash receipts by clerks report in Astra. So if you are using this report to like balance out your end of day, this is the one you'll use instead. So it will show you all payments collected for the date range entered, and it will total it all at the top based on payment type. It doesn't like subtotal it by clerk, but you can go over here to the right and sort by user to get the clerk information to see who took each payment. All of the reports in Firefly can be exported, so you can export it, print it of course, but then export it to PDF, CSV, or Excel. So if you do want to work any further with the data, by all means you can. And the one really cool thing about the reports in Firefly is if you have it loaded up on your screen and maybe you're like, oh, Joe, that seems like a high number for Joe. What was he doing there? You can always click on the entry in the report and actually go right to the account. So that makes it nice and easy to find out information because it's all referenced right through a click here. So like I was saying, this is your payments report. Again, very similar to your cash receipts by clerks. If we go back to our reports, you also have your charge payments report. So this is another good one, especially if you wanted to see who paid for what. So payments will just show you, this payment has been made in this amount by this person this way. The charge payments will say, okay, so-and-so paid for this specific charge. So we can see here, Julie, for example, she paid $21.47 towards the full hookup site 5. So the charge payments will give you a little bit more information based on what people were paying for. That was not something you could ever do in Astra. You had to track it down a little bit. So that's a really nice report to have. And I know a lot of people wanted that before. So that's all there. The other cool thing about, again, any of the reports pages is there is a search function here. So if you are looking for something, you're trying to find something specific, you can always type in the search. You can do names, you can do the charge type, you can even do amounts. So if you're like, oh, someone paid $100, you can type in 100 and it shows you anything that references $100 in the report. So very easy way to track down things if you're looking for something specific. There we go. Now, the one thing about the charge payments report is that it will not include your point of sale payments. So if you are using the POS register to run that, just make sure you come down to the bottom and you can do your POS payments report. So this will show you, let's just do this month. I did this last time. Let's do this year. Clearly, I don't use the point of sale very much at my test park here. But the POS payments will show you all payments that have come through the point of sale. So if you are using that charge payments report, just make sure that you also run the POS payments report so that you get your full numbers. Otherwise, you'll be missing some of the payments in that sense. So just make sure you do that one too. In terms of revenue, we do have our average daily revenue by unit and total revenue. Again, this will only be for like reservation or unit charges. It won't be for your POS or your add-ons. So to get revenue for that, just make sure you come down to the appropriate section. So we have the add-on rentals or add-ons sold and POS items sold for those items as well. We are working on a comprehensive report that will have everything in it. So that will be coming out. Don't have a date on that yet, but you can always use the accounting reports. So your journal entry summary, which we'll talk about more in a little bit, that's going to be your best bet for having your revenue show in a way that's organized the way you want to see it, basically. So that's why I always suggest setting up the accounting and doing it this way. A couple more reports on here. We have our coupon usage. So for your discounts, you can see what's being used there. Your overdue charges is your accounts receivables report, but it will only show you past due as of the day that you run it. So please do not judge me here, but you can see here that this is all the past due charges in my park right now. And again, you can click on the accounts to go to them. So let's say Gabriel here, let's say she needs to pay us. We'll go to charges, and you can see here are all the unpaid charges that are past due. If you do have someone you know that they are just never going to give you any of that money, there's no chance that you'll get it, you can go next to the charge and set it as uncollectible. And let me just do that for the 2 that she owes for here. Oh, okay, the 4 that she owes for, sorry. Well, I got to get some new staff at my park. They're not doing their job. Okay, there we go. So if we set those as uncollectible, now you'll see there's no balance due or overdue amount remaining. So they won't keep getting the email saying, hey, you still owe us money, right? So that'll stop. It'll wipe out the balance. That said, though, if you do run this overdue charges report, they're not going away. So you'll still be able to see them on the report, and you'll see that you marked it as uncollectible. So that's that option there. Now, if you just want to see anybody who owes you money, you don't care if it's past, present, or future, that's when we're going to use our unpaid charges report. And this just shows who owes you money, period. It doesn't matter if the reservation is 10 months from now. If they owe money, even partially owe on a charge, it'll be in this part here. So very similar, but you can see this is a worse list for me than the last one. So you can see that information if you need it there. In Astra, you'll know that you have your open funds report for everything in the fund account. That report is this reservation credits report in Firefly. Now, the reservation credits do work a little bit differently in Firefly than they do in Astra, so we will talk about that a little bit, but let me run the report. So you can see this is anybody who would have money in their fund account, basically. During the migration, anybody who does have money in their fund account, it will go in as a reservation credit, and they will be in this list. So you're not going to lose that information. If you do want to deal with all the reservation or the fund accounts first before you migrate, it might be a good idea, but you might have people who legitimately have a credit that they haven't used yet, and that's also okay. So you're not going to lose any of that. You don't have to like hurry and clean up everything before the migration. That data will remain intact with the migration, so don't worry. Now, the biggest difference between Firefly and Astra is the reservation credit. There are 2 types, basically. So you can see here on the right-hand side, there's a credit type, and we have reservation, and we have guest. So if I see that Nelska has a $50 credit here, and it's on her guest account, when I click on her name, it's going to take me to her guest account, and I can scroll down, and I can see, oh, okay, she has $50 hanging out here on her guest account. And I'm going to go back to this list, and we're going to take a look at the reservation one. So she has a $13.70 credit on her reservation, so let's look at that. And you can see if I go to the charges tab, now it says, okay, she has $13.70, but where's the 50, right? So if we go to the guest tab here, you can see, oh, here's the $50 credit. So basically, Astra would just always apply the credit to whatever they owed for, right? With Firefly, it's much more intentional. You have to tell it to apply the credit where you want it to go, so you can't misapply it or mistakenly refund it like you could in Astra. So if it's on their guest account, you can either transfer it to the reservation, which means it'll go from this section to this section here. Or if it's on the reservation and maybe they want to use it in the future towards a completely different reservation, you can transfer it from here over to their guest account with these 2 buttons here. So let's take her $50 and let's transfer that to her reservation. So we're going to transfer the guest credit here. And that's going to add it here. So now you can see she has the $63.70 credit. If you want to use the credit, we're going to go to new payment. We're going to check mark what we want to pay for. And we're going to use our reservation credit here. So you can see much more difficult to make a mistake. We'll save that. She only owes $17.14, and then the credit remains in her fund account here. If you need to add or reduce a credit, you can do so manually here as well. So yes, you can use it like the fund account, but you can also use it, say somebody had a bad experience and you're like, okay, we'll give you a $50 credit towards your stay. You could put it in here as well in that way. So that's all about the reservation credits there, and I think you'll find it easier to use, which is good. Firefly does, again, have, similar to Astra, it has like your occupancy reports. There's your arrivals and departures all down here. So you can always run this information if you need it. But what we really want to talk about today is the accounting. So the first step of the accounting is getting it all set up. So I'm going to go to settings over here on the left, and then we're going to go to accounting. We currently only have cash basis accounting available. Accrual is coming eventually, but we're not quite there yet. So right now it is just cash basis. You do have two options for your end of day batch. We have a one-step or a two-step option. The two-step option is identical almost to what Astra was, where you do your payment reconciliation and then your revenue recognition, whereas the one-step is a simplified process. And if you're not taking cash or checks, I would recommend the simple one-step method because you don't have any cash drawer or checks to reconcile. So if you're not reconciling a cash drawer, go with one-step method because you don't need to do all the extra stuff then. If you are reconciling a cash drawer, then you'll probably want the advanced two-step. Up to you at the end of the day, and you can try out both. So if you try one and you're like, oh, no, I want it the other way, you can try the other. It's not going to break anything, so it's okay to switch it if you want to test it out. On the general settings, we have to select our method, our batch mode, and you'll also want to select an account for other charges. This one's always confusing, so let me explain where this comes into play. So on Firefly, if you go to a customer's account, you can click New Charge, and you can kind of make a charge on the fly. So say you decide to classify this charge as other. You can enter whatever it is for and put your amount in, but any charge that you classify as other here goes into whatever account you have selected here. So just make sure that you're selecting an appropriate account for a kind of like miscellaneous revenue. So just make sure that that's taken care of there. If you are doing cash reconciliation and you would like a write-off account, that would go here. Not necessary if you're not going to do write-offs. So that's there if you need it. On our chart of accounts, we'll have to put in all the account numbers. If you already had them in Astra, they will come over in the migration. The linkages won't. We have to relink everything, but your chart of accounts will import over. You can edit them, you can change them, you can add new ones, so it doesn't have to be identical to Astra. If you want to change some things, now is the time basically to do that. And it's broken down pretty much the same way. So you'll see that there are some accounts here that have no custom label next to them. There is a default set of accounts that's in there that you cannot remove. So you have to have a cash account, and this doesn't have to mean physical cash. It could be cash, check, or credit. This is just where your payments basically get written into. This is the journal entry for your payments. You can separate it out by payment method if you wish. It's totally up to you. So if you wanted to do like an account number for cash and then an account number for credit debit, that is totally fine. If you're like, I just want all my payments going into one place, I just want one big number, that's also okay. So completely up to you, whatever's going to work best for your business. The accounts receivable, we need it in here, but it won't work. So it's not that it won't work, you don't need it for cash basis. So nothing will write to your accounts receivable, your accounts payable, your inventory offset, or your deferred revenue. A lot of these are for accrual basis accounting, so that's why nothing will write into them for cash basis. They're mandatory in the system, but like I said, you probably won't be using it. The deposits account, that is already in Astra, and a lot of you might have it already renamed to the unapplied funds account. This is a wash account. So everything goes into your payment, your asset, your bank account through deposits and then into liability and revenue. So that's kind of a mandatory account there, but it should most of the time net to zero. Then of course we have our tax accounts. We have to make sure that's set up as a liability. So we have that there. If you are doing more than one tax, it is okay to have more than one tax account. Again, this is really based on how you want to see your data on the report. So if you're like, I want to see each one of my individual taxes, perfect, make its own account code for each one, totally fine. I just did HST because I'm in Canada, and we only have the HSD. So I just did the one, but you can have as many as you want. Now for your income accounts, again, you can have as many as you want of those as well. So a lot of parks, you maybe just want to separate your income into like RV and cabins or something like that. If you want to get really detailed and do daily, weekly, monthly income for RV and cabins, also okay. So what I would say is for your income accounts, break it out in the way you want to see your revenue broken out. And that's what's so great about the accounting is that it's so customizable that you can see your data the way that's meaningful to you. Just make sure you have an account for it. All of the account numbers need to be in place. So if you are using QuickBooks, especially, if you're doing the export and import into QuickBooks, everything is based on account number, not name. Actually, any accounting package, to be honest. So if you're using the data to import, make sure your numbers match. Names don't have to match, account types don't have to match, but the numbers have to match. Otherwise, you're going to get lots of errors. We don't want that. So just make sure your numbers are all intact. In QuickBooks, a lot of people have their chart of accounts set up without numbers. I can help you put them in if you don't know how to do that. So no problem adding those if you need. So with all our income accounts, we also need our COGS or our costs of goods sold accounts. So you'll want at least one of those. If you aren't really using the inventory function, that's okay. I would suggest having one in here just in case, but nothing will write to it if you're not tracking inventory. You'll also need the 1300, doesn't have to be number 1300, but you will also need that inventory asset account, again, especially if you're using inventory. This inventory asset account tells you how much you have on your shelf in inventory based on what you paid for it. And that gets written against the cost of goods sold once you sell an item. So that's why you need those two parts if you're doing inventory. If you would like to do coupons or discounts into a separate GL code, you can. You don't have to, and we'll talk about that in a little bit when we get there, but that's something to keep in mind. And one that you will not have in Astra, but you do need in Firefly is an expense account for the reservation credit. So I always suggest separating this out because then you'll know exactly what's gone in and out of the reservation credit account. So I would make one specifically for that. And this has to be set up as an expense. So that's there. To add new accounts, you just hit new account here on the top right. You can put the name, number, and account class and type. The account class matters more than the account type. So whether it's an asset, expense, liability, or income, just make sure that's correct. The account type you can change, and none of that data writes into any accounting package. So if you get it wrong, quote unquote, it won't really do anything. So don't worry. For your tax account, you can put the tax entity name, and that would need to match what you have in QuickBooks if you've set it up that way. So just a side note there. The good news is, though, if you do try to import into QuickBooks and there's an error, it'll tell you exactly what the error is, and then we could fix what's needed and move on. So not a crisis there. So once your chart of accounts is all in here and you're happy with all your numbers, now we have to go through the system and start linking everything. It's not hard. You just want to make sure that you get everything linked. And if you do make a mistake or forget something, Firefly will not let you just plow through with an update without having everything linked together. So it's really hard to mess up. So it'll try to prevent you from just blindly doing it, forgetting to link something and thinking the income's just going to go out into the nowhere. That's not going to happen. So it will warn you if you haven't linked something appropriately. Now, if we go to our add-ons, so I always start under settings and just kind of go down the list. All of your add-ons will have to be linked to a code. So cancellation fee, for example, I don't know why mine's going into income weekly, but that's what I decided. So you can see that's set up there. Back. There we go. Pet fee, for example, you can have that going wherever you want. If you are doing security deposits, I would recommend a separate general ledger code for that. And you can see that can be linked separately as well. So go through each add-on and make sure those are all linked appropriately. The next one is our coupons. So we'll go into Good Sam here. Now, as I was mentioning before, you do not have to link your coupons to an expense account if you don't want to. If you leave it as is, it will come out of the sales or the revenue account. So what that means is, let's say somebody pays $50 and they're getting a $5 discount. If you do not link this to a specific expense account, then your sales account, your income account for that sale will say $45. If you decide to link this to an expense account because you want to track your coupon or your discount code separately, you'll see that your discount GL code would say $5 and your sales revenue code would say the full 50 because those would offset each other. So like I said, you do not have to separate it if you don't want to. It's up to you. I would say most people don't separate it because there is that report where you can see how coupons and discounts are being used. So up to you at the end of the day, but that's your option there. Don't feel like you have to, though, if you don't want to. The payment methods all have to be linked to an account code. And this is where you can decide if you want the payment methods all going into one account or if you want to separate them into different accounts. As long as the general ledger codes are set up, once you go here, you're going to do the circle with the 3 dots and click Edit. And then you just link the financial account accordingly. So again, lots of people like cash and checks into one because you're physically taking that to the bank for deposit, and they like their credit and debit in another one. Totally fine. So just go through all of your different payment methods here, link those up. And again, we'll want to make sure we have that special reservation credit one for our reservation credits. The big difference here too with the credits is in Firefly, it's considered a payment method. So it's not going to be like, where did that come from? When did that money get applied? That won't happen anymore. But because it is a payment method, it does have to be linked. So that's why I want to make sure that you have that set up properly. If there are payment methods that you don't want, if you're like, oh, Zelle, I don't want anyone marking anything as Zelle, you can go into the edit button and you can hide the payment method as well. Note, though, that the only payment method people will see online is debit credit. So they can't be like, I want to do PayPal and pay that way online. These are just to market on the park side if you'd like to accept money that way, but it's recording only. It's not going to send them an invoice through PayPal or Venmo or anything like that. So just be aware of that. The customer will only see debit credit. The rest is for the park level. All right, we're going to go into our POS item categories. So if you are using the point of sale, I would highly recommend doing the categories because once you set up the general ledger codes in the category, it automatically applies to all items in that category. So if you're trying to set things up, that'll save you a whole bundle of time. You don't have to go back and relink every single POS item in your inventory. Please don't do that. Just set it up in the category setup. We'll need to make sure that you have the revenue account, so the sales account, cost of goods sold, and your inventory account. So they'll have to have all three. Please make sure that this is an expense, the cost of goods sold, and this is an asset. Otherwise, you'll be double writing into entries and you'll get messes, and we don't want that. So cost of goods sold and inventory asset. If you have specific items, like say, for example, you have a category called wood and ice, but you want wood to be tracked and ice to be tracked separate of each other in your revenue. You can go into the point of sale and then go to POS items. You can open an individual item and link the GL codes here. So even though it's in the wood and ice category, if you go into the individual item to link separate financial accounts, it'll override whatever the category default is. So you can separate them, even if you want to classify them together in the same category on your register. So they can be separated out. While we're here in the inventory, the cost is what comes in and out of the inventory and cost of sales account. If this is 0, nothing will happen in these accounts. So if you're not tracking quantity and you're like, I don't care how much I have in money sitting on my shelf, it doesn't matter to me, then don't worry about putting the cost in. If you would like to track how much is going out in sales, how much you have sitting on your shelf, then you'll have to put the cost in. But again, if this is 0, nothing will touch these. So just be aware of that relationship. If we go back to our settings, we'll keep going down. We'll go into our property settings. So this is one that's kind of hidden, and we just have to make sure these are all linked to an account code as well. But it's under settings, property, and then it's your fees here. So with your fees, you can see we have our reservation fee and our processing fee. These definitely have to be linked as well. So we do the circle with the 3 dots and edit, and you'll see that there's a financial account here. You can separate them into different codes if you want, or you can have them all going into one, whatever is going to work best for your reporting, but just make sure those are separated out. And because this isn't technically income for you, it's getting passed on to the processor or to us, I would recommend definitely separating it out. Don't put it in like your RV or your cottage income account because it's going to be harder to separate in the long run. So I would definitely recommend getting that out of there, getting that out from your normal income. Our taxes, again, will have to all be linked. So you just go into the tax and you select accordingly there. And then we have our units down here as well. So for the units, you can go into each unit, and the unit settings are similar for the accounting versus the lengths or the rates or any of that. So if you are on the general tab and we scroll down, you'll see here's the financial account. If I have a financial account linked here, then any income for site one, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, guest fees, pet fees, extra vehicles, will all go in to the account code here. And I'm assuming if you want to break it out, you want your RV sites, maybe your tents and your cottages, the copying of this information can be done in bulk through your options tab up here, import, export, and then you can do your financial account that are the same across whatever sites here. Now, if you want to get really fancy and you want to break out your daily, weekly, and monthly revenue, we have to go into our rates, and you'll have to go into every rate that you have. And again, we'll do edit, and you'll select the financial account for that. So you can see here's my daily rate that's going into daily income. If I go to my monthly or seasonal too, I didn't mention seasonal before, but you can break that out. But if I go to my monthly and edit my monthly here, then there's my monthly income. And all the extras will also go into the financial account linked on this specific rate. So if you want your revenue broken out that way, this is a great way to do it. The lock fee can also go into its own account code. So if you want to see how much you're making in lock fees, that's great. Otherwise, it'll probably just go into, like, you can just put it into one, like the income daily or whatever, if you wanted to there. So if you're using that function, that's there too. And then at the very bottom, we have our utilities. So again, if you're doing electric, sewer, water, anything like that, all your meters, you'll go into the meter and you'll link it there. So just make sure all of those links are in place, and then we can do our end of day. So once that's all done, to actually do your end of day update, we're going to go over to accounting and end of day. This is a permission that you can turn on and off. So if you don't want your clerks all to have access to this, they don't have to. You can give it to them if they're going to be doing the procedure. Now, mine is set up for the two-step batch. So if you were doing the one-step batch, you would not do this step. It wouldn't even be available. You would skip it completely. But for the two-step batch, usually we recommend doing the closeout the morning after, just so that you can cut everything off at midnight and not have to compare weird timeframes. So let's say we're going to close out on the 17th. And there's a time function here. Astra never had the time, so make sure that you also change the time if you're doing the day before to 11:59 p.m. and then we'll generate that. So this is going to generate our cash, our credit debit, and if you had checks, that'd be in here too. There's a summary option. You can see all that if you need to. Now, the one thing that I know drove people nuts in Astra, whereas if you forgot to backdate it, we had to delete it for you so that you would be able to backdate it. Otherwise, it would batch days together, right? In Firefly, it will automatically break it out day by day. So if you forget to backdate it, if you're off for a week and you don't want to do it for every single day, you could do the full week, but your reporting will still be day by day. So we don't need to delete any of that for you anymore. For your reconciliation, you would count your cash and you would just type in how much you actually have. There we go. If it is different from the expected amount, you are able to write off the difference if you have that set up. I didn't set it up in mine. I'm assuming we're always going to be right, but you can have the write-off if you want it. Once your numbers look good here, and if you want to check it against your processor, you can as well. You'll also see the transaction ID that will match the processor and the credit card number, the last 4 digits, which would also be in the processor. So you can match back that information if you need to. But once your numbers are good, we hit post batch, then we hit yes, and that's our payment reconciliation done. Next is we have to go up to the top, and it's funny because I keep getting people stuck down here and they don't realize that you have to scroll up just a little and then you'll see the transactions tab there. So we're going to click on transactions. We're going to change our date again so it matches. And if you're doing the one-step batch, this is all you'll see. This is the part that you'll get. Here we go. We'll apply. We'll generate that. And this will be all of your revenue coming in. So it's going to generate all your journal entries here. If you do not do this step, your journal entries will not happen. They won't be created. So basically you can see everything in here. If there's a mistake, it would be in red and it will tell you why it's red. So I did this right this time. I didn't go back and break it again. The most common mistake I see though is, and it won't let you hit post batch if there is an error in it, but the most common mistake I see is that people have an overpaid charge. And if a charge is overpaid, it will not allow you to do the end of day update. The reason that you might have an overpaid charge, like say, for example, this one, maybe they got a coupon, they paid for everything. Then they're like, oh, I'm a good SAN member, and you added it after the fact. If you don't deal with this money, then the end of day gets kind of upset. So if there is an overpaid amount here, we need to make sure we deal with it by going to the options tab here and either refunding the money to the card if you're giving it back, refunding it to a reservation credit if you want to give them a credit on their account, or editing the charge to reflect the 90/40 less than what the charge reflects now. So however you want to deal with it is fine, but just make sure that you deal with it before you post, because it won't let you post until you do. But this looks good. The reservation revenue is all here. And again, if there is an issue, or if you're like, oh, that one looks a little bit weird, it's always referenced at the top. So you can click on the link to actually go to the account and see what's up before you proceed. So you're always able to kind of check that out too. You have your POS revenue here, inventory, if you had any there, reservation credit adjustments, and your summary here. And you can see I haven't done this in a long time. So that's why mine's back from April there. So that's a little scary. So you just make sure everything looks good. If post batch is lit up, you're probably good to go. So we'll hit post batch and yes, and this will create all the revenue journal entries for you. So once this step is done, now you'll have your reports and you'll be able to transfer. I'll do the reports last. So let's just get into the posting batches section here. And this posting batches section is just a history of all the end of days that you've done. You can click on the individual end of day. You can see what accounts were affected. You can click in the actual account and see the entries written to that account. So you can see everything in here. If you're doing the one-step method, you'll only see transaction on this side. If you're doing the two-step method, just like Astra, you'll see payment and transaction for your payment reconciliation and revenue recognition. So just be aware of that. If someone does make a mistake, because it happens, maybe they update prematurely or something like that, you can reverse the batch here without having to get us to do it. So you're able to back up if you need to. At the very bottom of this page, we have the adjustment. So if you do need to make an adjustment to a GL code, you can do so at the bottom here. It will post on the day that you do the adjustment. So that's all there. The transfer batches is where you're going to create your IIF file for QuickBooks. So you just check mark what you want in your file, basically. Choose your format, QuickBooks, and then click generate. And that's going to download a file to your computer. That's an IIF extension, which can be imported into QuickBooks. If you can open that file, if you want to look in it, or if you want to edit it for any reason, you can open the file in Notepad and make changes if you have to. So always an option. You can also regenerate transfer files from here as well. So if you lost the file for whatever reason, or you were on a different computer, you can always re-download it if you need to. Now, on our reports over here, the journal entry summary report is exactly the same as your GL summary in Astra. So let's do this month. There we go. We'll hit run. In Astra, you had to choose whether you want the credit debit option or the post amount option. Firefly just gives it all to you. So you'll see your account number, your account name, debit, credit, and post amount. If you are manually transferring the data into your own accounting package, you're not using QuickBooks, or you're like, this is scary, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do the import until I'm comfortable, and I just want to do it by hand, totally fine. The post amount is probably what you want, or you could do the debit credit. Just either do this part or this one or the other. And again, you can print, you can PDF, CSV, or Excel this information here. So if you need to work further with the data, that's also possible. I also know a lot of other accounting packages that are not QuickBooks use CSV files for an import, so you could always try that out if you were working with another package and needed the CSV. We also have the journal entries report. This one's pretty intense. So the journal entries summary will show you the post amount to each GL code. The journal entries report will show you every debit and credit into every GL code for the time frame you've entered. So you can see that that's a lot of data to look at. But again, if you're looking for something specific, you can sort by specific GL code. I don't think I sold any wood, did I? No, of course not. All right, let's do income daily. There we are. You can look at a specific GL code and you can see all the debit and credits that were posted into it. So if there is something you're looking for, you can definitely narrow it down in here. But for all intents and purposes, I would probably generally revert to the journal entry summary report because that's just a much more manageable way to see all your data. But yeah, that is pretty much all of the accounting part of it. And if there are any questions, now's the time.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We have one question, but I'm sure there are more. So if you guys have them, send them our way. Okay, so Deborah asked, does the system automatically assign the account number? And that's for the beginning when you were getting everything set up. And then maybe I'll add on to that when moving from Astra to Firefly, will it pull over account numbers?
So it pulls over your chart of accounts. It doesn't assign it. We have to link it manually once the chart of accounts is in. So it won't link them. So we have to do the linking. But the chart of accounts will be there, so you don't have to sit there and enter them all, which is the most tedious part. So
awesome. Okay, and it looks like Deborah's typing more. And Deborah, I can give you the option to unmute as well. 1 second. Okay, you should be good to unmute if you want to ask a question too.
So Adrian, I would presume that it automatically will pull down our QuickBooks account numbers and automatically attach them.
So it won't attach them. Like, so if they're in Astra, the account numbers will already come through into your chart of accounts. So they'll be here, but we have to go through and attach them to like your add-ons and everything. But once that's done, if you're doing the import, then it will import into the correct QuickBooks numbers.
Perfect. That's what that was basically my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, this is the first time this happened all week, so I actually think it's kind of like a great way to end a week of full intense trainings. So we don't have any other questions, so I'll go ahead and share my screen. Same spiel as the rest of the week, but I have I tweaked my announcements a little bit for you. And then if you are thinking of questions right now, feel free to add them into the chat, and then we can take a look at them when I'm done. So just kind of like what's next, what's happening. Firefly success or S'more success is done after this. And so next steps is to meet with your migration manager. I know I said that at the beginning as well, but for anyone who joined maybe after I did some initial announcements, it can be a quick call of like, okay, what do we do next? It can be a training on something specific. It can be an overview for really whatever you need. Our team's here to help you be as comfortable with Firefly as possible. As you guys are approaching the end of your seasons, it is really nice to get Firefly set up. So then you can just go ahead and click turn on basically, and switch over from Astra to Firefly when you're ready for that. So that's kind of what's next. You will see a feedback survey coming from myself. I'll probably send it on Monday. And I would love to know, was this helpful? Was this not helpful? Was there a topic that you still want training on? We do have time later on this year to add a couple more success like add-on trainings if needed. So I'm trying to brainstorm currently of like what topics did we miss or what would be helpful based off of all your frequently asked questions. And then we have our Firefly Reservations knowledge base that I know a lot of you have seen. You've gotten links to it this week from me, but it's kind of the same thing. If you have questions, every time we get questions, I'm trying to keep a catalog of them and then go update our knowledge base. But it's just a really great tool if you, maybe one of your team members or you have a question, you know we've talked about it before, you remembered the answer, but you didn't remember exactly what it was. That's a great source. You can search on it for the topic, say it's accounting or reporting. You can actually search and see all of the help articles there. And then we do add to it as well. So if you ever are reading one and you're like, this is not helpful, there's actually like a thumbs up, thumbs down on it. You can just click that thumbs down. That notifies me to know we got to go get that updated. And then because I looked at your guys' names. Everyone's been here. You have gotten this announcement already, but Firefly and Airbnb is coming. We are almost to September, and so lots more information will be sent out about that and what the integration is going to look like, what information you need. And so stay tuned for that. I don't have anything else for you today, but we'll get that out to you guys as soon as September comes around. So that is it. This is the final s'more success. So thank you guys so much for coming and participating, and it's been really cool. Actually, when we first started talking about this, it'd be like, oh, it'd be great to get a couple people on a couple calls, and I think everyone who showed up on Mondays showed up to almost every single day. And then if they showed up on Tuesday, like, you still came for the rest of the week. So that's just been awesome to see your guys' investment, and we know how important software is to you guys in running your businesses. And so yeah, thank you. I'm just super grateful. And then Adrian, thank you so much for taking the time today to do this training. Yes, keep sending questions our way, you guys, and we'll help you however we can. So have a great rest of your day, everyone.